All coincidences with real people are random. If they tell you that this is not the case, ignore them. Captain America, fearless hero and protector of the homeland, was preparing for one of the most challenging and dangerous missions of his career. This time, their target was particularly important: the base of the Red Skull, a sinister enemy who had been a constant threat to the world for decades. Steve Rogers, leading his squad of the best soldiers, knew that this assault would be decisive. Gathering everyone before the mission, Steve gave an encouraging look to his comrades. His confidence instilled hope and determination in them. "Today we put an end to his tyranny. Move forward and don't look back." His voice was steady, but deep down, he felt a foreboding sense of dread that he couldn't explain. The sky above the Red Skull's base was covered in thick clouds, as if predicting the horrors to come. Explosions lit up the night sky as Captain America's soldiers began their assault. Bullets whistled, explosions shook the ground, but no one retreated. Captain America was at the heart of the battle, his shield serving as both a reliable defense and a formidable weapon. Inside the base, chaos reigned. The Red Skull's soldiers fought desperately, but their ranks were thinning under the hero's onslaught. Steve and his squad pushed deeper until they reached the main laboratory, where, according to their intel, the Red Skull himself was hiding. The enormous metal door to the laboratory was locked, but that didn't stop Captain America. He broke through it with his shield, storming inside. The laboratory was dark and cold. The walls were lined with vials containing eerie liquids and glass containers housed incomprehensible creatures. But in the center of the room stood the Red Skull, watching the scene with a wicked grin on his face. "Welcome, Captain. I've been waiting for this moment." His voice was cold and calm. Suddenly, the Red Skull activated something hidden behind a huge curtain. Before them appeared a massive cylinder filled with murky green liquid, inside of which was something horrific. It was a creature, mutilated beyond recognition, a blend of human and machine created for destruction. "You think you can defeat me, Steve? Behold my latest creation," the skull laughed. The creature began to writhe and suddenly broke free from the cylinder, attacking the soldiers. Captain America rushed into battle, his shield striking enemies, but the monster was incredibly strong and fast. The fight turned into a nightmare. Every attack was deadly, and the soldiers fell one by one. Captain America fought desperately, his blows powerful, but the monsters seemed invulnerable. He realized that with each passing minute, their chances of victory were diminishing. Steve was forced to retreat, trying to find a weak spot in the enemy. Amid the battle, the walls of the laboratory began to distort, and Captain felt his mind clouding. The Red Skull used a new device that created hallucinations. Captain saw ghostly images of his fallen friends and comrades, reality distortions making each step more difficult. "You will never defeat me," Rogers the Skull's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Steve felt his mind breaking down. The hallucinations became more real, and he couldn't distinguish illusion from reality. Around him, monsters appeared, reaching out their clawed hands. But even in this horror, he continued to fight. Steve gathered all his strength and finally overcame the mutant, but his mind was on the brink of collapse. The skull activated another device, and the entire laboratory began to crumble. Steve knew there was little time left. "We both die here," Rogers the Skull shouted, his voice dissolving in the noise of explosions. Captain tried to find an exit, but the hallucinations and horrors prevented him from focusing. He saw Jane, Bucky, and other comrades calling to him, but they were mere illusions. The explosions reached their peak, and the laboratory walls began to collapse. The collapsed base left only ruins behind. No one knew what had happened to Captain America and the Red Skull. Their bodies were never found. People remembered Steve Rogers as a hero, but no one knew the horror he endured in his final moments. His sacrifice went unrecognized, and the world continued to live, not knowing the price of this supposed victory. After the catastrophe that wiped the Red Skull's base off the face of the Earth, the world continued to exist, but the darkness that had touched Captain America's mind left an indelible mark. His sacrifice saved many, but no one could understand the horror he experienced and the price he paid. Every time people passed by the ruins of that base, they felt a cold wind and a strange pressure, as if the horror of this story still lingered in the air. They didn't know that Captain America's spirit was still fighting the shadows of the past, trying to find the peace he never managed to achieve.